the sluggish visage. There on the ground, she lay, observing her via the binoculars. I was certain that my perception was genuine. Like lovers, they had approached the small group of trees and clasped hands. My heart was breaking deep inside. Proof of what the issue was, there in front of me. When I looked at her with him, I saw a needy woman. The picture was flawed since it showed my wife and not me as the man standing on top of her. I was still not sure how this had happened, but I will find out. She had no idea that I was aware of her straying as of yet. I intended to maintain it that way for some time to come. Over the years, our bonding had been good, but in the past year or so, she had lost interest in doing it. Initially, I assumed that she was simply experiencing a hormonal shift following her recovery from giving birth to our third kid. I was wrong about the rationale, as I could see today. She remained my devoted and understanding wife, a lovely mother who was actively interested in her family's life. It was a phone call from an anonymous caller that had alerted me to this aspect of her that I had only just begun to suspect. I believe the caller might have been the man between her legs' ex-girlfriend. Now, what was I supposed to do? They were on film that I had. That is, a digital camera, and I also had some emails between them. When she was sleeping in our bed one night, I had managed to get her password and had spied on her. The emails weren't particularly damaging, but the tone and open love she was showing a man who wasn't her husband was all I needed. The dude was someone I knew. He was married and worked as a local insurance salesman. Tom Harper is a kind guy and a man about town. Yes, a decent guy, perhaps skilled at ruining other people's marriages, but undoubtedly not a good person at heart. After returning to my hiding place behind the little group of trees where I had been filming the couple, I got up and began to make my way to my car. When I arrived, she was standing in front of my car. She was someone I knew. Mrs. Harper Tom. If she understood why I was here, I wondered. So, you just saw them up there. Did you get some good shots of them doing the dirty? You know then, Anne. Yeah, I'd suspected Tom for a while. This was to be our day out and about, but he suddenly had an emergency. He should have known that I didn't buy that. He's an insurance man, for Christ's sakes. Insurance men don't have emergencies. What are you going to do, Anne? Well, I was hoping you would let me have a copy of that tape first of all. Maybe if you have some other proof of them cheating on us too. I have some evidence myself. I'll trade you even Steven for it. I'm not sure what I'm going to do yet. Not sure. Are you crazy? They are cheating on us, lying, sneaking around, and seeing each other, having an affair. You're not sure what you're going to do. Well, in spite of everything, my wife is loving to me at home, and she is a good mother. I don't know if I want to divorce her or not. You're not one of those kinky guys that likes to watch their wives with other men, are you? No. Look, I'll give you what I have, you give me what you have. But leave me out of your party, okay? I need to figure out what it is I want to do here. You are a strange man, Dave, a very strange man. Your wife is cheating on you and you are not sure what you want to do about it. Yeah, what can I say? I gave her my heart 15 years ago, and I just can't take it back in a few seconds now, can I? Besides, we have 3 kids and I'm not sure what to do about them either. I love my family, Anne, and I don't know what I'm going to do. It's all a bad nightmare for me. You just found out, didn't you? You just now got the proof you couldn't bring yourself to believe, didn't you? Yeah, there was some email the other day, but this is the first actual visual proof I've gotten of her stepping out on me like this. Then you aren't aware of the others. Other men. She's been out with several other men. Several at a time too, I'm afraid. I found out because one of those men had a wife that found them in her bed with 4 of them. 3 other men and your wife. She filed for divorce and then told me. My Tom was one of the other men there that day. Should she have struck me in the abdomen, I could not have been more taken aback. Did someone other than Tom witness her? Was she doing multiple men at once? My spouse, my Nikki, a typical woman. It is not possible. It was unbelievable to me. Tom must be with Anne, thus she must be making this whole thing up. I have proof. That lady gave me pictures and some movies the guys had made. Her husband wasn't that good at hiding them, it seems, and during their divorce those movies cost him dearly. Very dearly. You have movies. More than one. Oh God, I lost my appetite. Thank God I was outside. If not, my automobile would have been a complete disaster. Is my Nikki a star above all others? What had transpired with her? Why? With a worried expression, Anne took a step back and remained silent while I concluded my extremely embarrassing incident. I stood up straight after straightening up a little and wished I hadn't come here today. I was thinking that maybe I truly didn't want to know everything. Okay, do you have a computer at home? An email address would be nice. Why don't you just come over to my place and copy it off there? I can give you copies of those movies and what else I have too. It will be easier. As I followed her to her house, I couldn't help but reflect on what I had just discovered that morning. My spouse was not only having extramarital affairs with me, but also with numerous other men. I just couldn't force myself to think about group time and other things right then. Later on that day, I watched one of the movies at home. I was astounded by what I witnessed. Nikki is making every effort to get men. She had never given me permission to do anything like that, but here she was, starring alongside 6 men in a movie, and by the end, she had done all of those men. Every hole in her anatomy had been visited by all those men too. The order also didn't matter. The portion that truly resonated with me was that I sat there in my den, feeling as though everything in my world was falling apart. Nikki's mom had been wondering why I had arranged for the kids to spend the night at her parents' place. I informed her that Nikki and I needed to work out our issues tonight. Her mother did not divulge any information to me, even though I could tell she knew more than I did. Nikki had come home and I was seated in the living room. Since I was supposed to be on a 3-day business trip and had gone that morning, she wasn't expecting me. The men behind her were pulling at her dress and flipping it up as she stepped in. "You guys, someone may see. Knock it off. We only have a couple of hours till the kids get home, so we'll have to be quick. Maybe tomorrow we can all meet up and have a real party. I'll make arrangements for the kids to stay at my mom's and..." Oh God, no. At last, she had caught me seated in my easy chair. The men behind her were moving quickly to the entrance after spotting me already. Maybe that was influenced by the 45 inches Ruger that was resting on the coffee table in front of me. When I saw her arrive and the other 3 cars driving in behind her, I had already picked it up. I had gotten it out of the lockbox in my den in less than a second. "Dave, what are you doing home? I wasn't expecting you. What happened to your business trip?" "Didn't have a business trip, Nikki. I faked it. I followed you instead. I saw you with that Tom, then his wife met up with me. She had some interesting things to say, and then she gave me some tapes. You seem to be a movie star, dear." Nikki sobbed uncontrollably as she fell to the ground in front of me. She was trembling and I could see tears streaming down her cheeks and onto her clothing. The door had been left ajar, so I got up and closed it. I was feeling nothing when I looked at her. Nor resentment, nor grief, nothing. It caught me off guard. I went outside to the kitchen and sat there reflecting after taking a soda pop out of the refrigerator. I felt so empty and my senses were so dulled that I was unable to react emotionally to anything. I just sat there, drinking the Coke and gazing into nothing. "Dave, honey, I'm sorry. I am so sorry." I was sitting there, barely breathing, not moving, not talking. I don't know how it all happened. I just don't know how it got so far out of hand. Out of hand. Like you planned on just one guy one time. Maybe just having an affair with one guy. Maybe just one party with a bunch of guys. Out of hand. That kind of out of hand. Nikki started crying and ran away. For long hours, I sat there, still as a stone. In the true sense. After 3 hours, I stood up and used the restroom. Nikki was still crying on our bed when I heard him stroll by our bedroom door. She had someone on the phone with her. After using the restroom, I simply felt that I had to leave. I headed to my dresser after entering our bedroom. Nikki started pleading with me to hold off as I started gathering clothes to bring with me. She started pleading with me to let her tell me everything after hanging up the phone. I paid her no attention, not even acknowledging that she was in the same room as me. She was on the verge of hysteria by the time I had packed 2 luggage. "Dave, please wait. Can't we talk about it? Please. I'm sorry, I don't want to lose you. Please. Nikki, you lost me when I saw that first movie of you. Before that I may have been able to handle it all and maybe even have forgiven you. Now I realize I don't know you. You're a stranger to me, Nikki. I don't know you at all. What I do know about the new Nikki I don't like. At all. I can change. I changed once, I can change again. I will be true to you. I know I messed up, but I can change back into being your faithful wife. I love you. I can't live without you, Dave. Please, give me a chance to prove that to you. I'm going away for a while. The kids are at your mom and dad's. You will have to pick them up. If you have time between all your, fooling around, that is. I'll be in touch. Goodbye, Nikki." There in the bedroom, I left her. I immediately walked outside to my car, threw on my clothing, and then came back to get my 45. There was nothing more I needed or wanted in the house right now. I was unable to muster the slightest amount of hurt or rage. All I felt was numbness. After spending the night in a motel, I made an appointment for the next day with an attorney over the phone because it was still early enough. Using my laptop, I browsed the internet while seated at the motel that evening and did several transactions in our bank accounts. I sent a sizable amount of money into the broker account I still had with an internet company that was only in my name. I gave half to Nikki, even if I wanted to accept it all. In the end, it was the kids, not her, that convinced me to quit. I grabbed all of our savings, with the exception of $15.08. I was hoping Nikki would understand the meaning of that sum. All she had left was 15 years and 8 months of marriage. But knowing her, I doubt that she would notice it, not immediately. I informed her mother that I had moved out over the phone. I refrained from explaining the reason, but it was evident to me that she had a strong suspicion. "Nikki was very foolish, Dave. You know she loves you though. Are you sure you can't fix it up between you?" "I don't think this can be fixed, Mom. Nikki kind of went too much overboard and I can't see this being fixed. I love her. I do. But she went and did something I can't forgive her for. I hope that you and George won't hate me. I still love you guys too. We'll be here for you, Dave. I know that Nikki messed up real bad. We will always love you too. If you ever need to talk." "Thanks, Mom. I appreciate that. Maybe, when this all simmers down, we can have dinner or something some night. That would be good. Until then, Dave." "Night, Mom." I had heard about divorces in the past, so I understood that this was a startling time. Nobody would have stopped attempting to determine what had occurred and why. The moments of blame would arrive very soon, and they would be closely followed by the moments of rage. It all split out into different things after that. I needed to be in a place I could call home before the sorrow and rage took hold of me, even if I wasn't sure when they would. It wasn't ideal to be in a motel when experiencing pain or rage. I made up my mind to look for an apartment the following day as well. The ensuing weeks were terrible. I was able to rent a place, and the lawyer gave me a lot of advice on topics I hadn't considered or even realized I needed. Nikki would constantly try to reach me on my work or cell phone, but I wasn't answering her calls. She was getting frustrated with my lack of effort to engage in conversation. She started stalking me quite soon after. She would be at the door when I arrived for work. I wouldn't even acknowledge her presence as I would continue to stroll past her. After a few weeks of this, she suddenly stopped being there. It wasn't until I was seated at my desk that I realized she was no longer there. At that very time, I experienced an odd emotion, a depressing and loss-like sensation. She was done. We were done for. It was finished. That afternoon, I received a call from my attorney informing me that Nikki and her lawyer had scheduled a meeting to discuss the divorce. I set up the time and day, assured him it was okay, and hung up. Even though I wasn't behind, I still had work to accomplish because it was our busiest time of year. Nevertheless, I spent a considerable amount of time staring blankly at my desk. That evening, I became angry. It struck me suddenly, and my first instinct was to go smash someone or something. Afterwards, I made the decision to not harbor that resentment if at all possible. I started figuring out how to keep myself from being consumed by this whole situation and turning into a bitter, lonely person. I was not going to let what Nikki had done to our marriage now affect my life. If only things could have been that simple. I was feeling quite good when I got to work the following morning. My work was taking off, but my personal life was collapsing. I had never worked long hours at a job, and I had never brought work home with me. Usually, my workday finished at 5 o'clock, and I wouldn't give it any thought until I was driving to work the next morning. I worked 90% of the time at my job. 10% of the time, well, sometimes at a certain job, things would get sticky or problematic, and I would find myself thinking about it while I wasn't working. Usually, I would give in and give it some thought because I knew that if I didn't, it would trouble me all night, or, depending on the situation, all weekend. Nikki was unable to claim that I prioritized work over her, and the children. That was the thing about this whole thing that had been driving me crazy. I was still baffled as to why she had done what she had in the end. It was just not logical. I had felt that our home life and physical life were excellent. I acknowledge that things have been a little strange over the past year, but after reflection, I see that Nikki, not me, was to blame. I bet she's been doing that for the past 12 months. I started attempting to recall our past together to try and estimate when she might have started acting in this manner. I couldn't possibly choose just one thing. It just appeared to happen out of nowhere. 2 days before to the lawyer's appointment, I was at work when a coworker approached me and appeared quite uneasy. He avoided eye contact with me because he was nervous. "What's up, Dan?" Dave, I have something to tell you and I'm not sure how you'll react to it. It is very personal. For me and you. Can we talk somewhere? Off the job. Okay, how about at McWilly's at 6 tonight? We'll have a few and talk. Actually, I want you to come to my place. My wife, damn, she thinks that I need to show you something. It's about Nikki. I know you two are having problems right now, but I don't think you know about this. Can you just follow me home tonight? My wife told me I need to tell you. She also wants to talk to you too. Okay, I guess I can do that. I sat there wondering what Dan had found after he left. Neither he nor his wife were people I knew well. In actuality, I was unaware that he was wed. Curious, I was also a little terrified of what they were going to reveal. I discovered that night at Dan and Julie's house that I was also a movie star. It was so unexpected that at first I assumed they were playing a practical joke on me. When they showed me what they had, I was in shock as well. For a while, it was quite the scene. It turned out that Dan was really helpful, and his wife was also very skilled at soothing choppy waters. Dave, I wish I could say it was good to meet you under far better circumstances. Yeah, me too, Julie. Dan told me you guys have something to show me. Yeah, you know we need to keep that we told you this or showed you this kind of quiet. Dan's job isn't too intrusive, but you of all people know that the company has all those morals clauses and all. Morals clauses. You guys aren't. Swingers, are you? No. Oh God, no. Dan, you better tell Dave about our hobby. Hobby? Indeed, Dave, Julie was attempting to inform you that we frequently browse the internet. Wow, that's amazing. I've never known someone who writes, much less two of them. Why is that such a huge deal? Well, that's not too horrible, but I understand your concern about the business learning about that kind of thing. I understand why you didn't want to discuss this at work, too, but I'm okay with it. I promise not to tell anyone about you too. In actuality, one day, I might like to go read some of your stories. Dan was having trouble telling me the important item, and Julie was observing us. I chose to attempt to diffuse the situation and reduce tensions because I could tell she was anxious about it all as well. Now, I understand that you would like to show me something, most likely involving my wife, Nikki. You are aware of the issues we are currently facing. In actuality, we are divorcing each other. I discovered out that she has been having some fun with other men. Naturally, she apologizes for everything, but we meet with the divorce attorneys in a few days to discuss everything. I'm not a concern. Anything you throw at me now, I can handle. Julie gave me a shiver-inducing gaze and started talking. Dave, you don't understand. What we found on the internet is you. At one of the locations with, let's say, lower standards. In a movie, we came upon you. Anticipating the punchline, I sat there, with having that terrible, frightening sensation within knowing there was nothing to wait for. Now I was also perplexed. What are you trying to say? I have never appeared on video or audio, save from a few years ago when I played a fool at a wedding. In any case, it wasn't worth seeing. Julie turned to face Dan and clasped his hand. With her eyes fixed on Dan's, she addressed me. What we're going to show you, Dave, we discussed. We doubt you are aware that you are being filmed. We believe that a covert video of you was taken. Without your knowledge, Nikki and you both appeared in the movie. Nikki was aware of it. Dan was certain that you were unaware of it. He believed that you have to know quickly. All right, then demonstrate for me. Now that I'm clear, I need to know if this is as serious as you two are acting so I can take appropriate action before the firm becomes aware of it. I was completely taken aback by what they revealed to me. The least intense feeling I felt was anger. I was in shock that Nikki could have ever treated me so cruelly or dishonestly. I was even colder after learning that she had also been unfaithful to me. Dan and Julie discovered a movie featuring Nikki on this website, in which I had a small role. I had no knowledge of it at all. I kept watching it, unable to fathom how I could have missed anything like what had to have happened in order for me to be caught on camera. I kissed Nikki at the beginning of the movie as I was leaving the house in the morning. I could even recall that morning since Nikki was wearing a bathrobe that she had purchased the day before for the first time ever. Nikki had never been one to wear bathrobes before that. She has always been a fan of shorts and sweatshirts. The camera followed me as I walked outside to my car and then as I drove down the street after I kissed her on my way out the door, appearing to be completely normal. For the life of me, I couldn't recall anyone having been out in the street at all, so the camera person had to have walked outside to capture it as they did. I also remembered that morning because I was on the verge of calling in ill. That morning, Nikki had woken me up with she had promised to have something for me that evening, so I was to hold on to that concept. The thing that truly disturbed me was realizing, after seeing the film, that she had been acting without my awareness. Like, say, my devoted wife. She was an excellent actress because I was unaware that I was being filmed. That morning, I had left with a still ferocious heart-on, and I had had an incredibly difficult day overall. She had met me at the door that evening. She jumped my bones as soon as I arrived in the door because the kids had been farmed out to her mom. The fact that we had a tease earlier that day and I knew I had gotten extremely worked up was what really got to me. I was driving away when I heard a narrator narrating. Nikki is getting ready for her day at home while Dave is heading out for another workday. Dave embodies the quintessential cuckold. Nikki is at home being a slave to guys while he is out slaving all day. Many males. She has him well trained. He can't do anything for her like they can, so he lets her have other men. Being the wuss that he is, Dave understands that he must allow Nikki to have other guys in order to keep her, and he has come to terms with that. I was simply ill, feeling nauseous and humiliated. Nikki was with 3 men when I had just about made it down the street. A second group was waiting for their turn in the backdrop. The entire day was spent watching the movie, and Nikki was almost always screwed. They also never failed to notice Nikki's holes. She carried it about with her. The men cleaned up and departed about 10 minutes before I left, and Nikki and the camera person spoke. Take note that I mentioned the males cleaned up. Nikki wiped herself instead of doing anything. Nikki made up a lot of lies about me and us during the chat. Things about her that I found unbelievable. They discussed her and how I needed other men to make up for my flaws. Then the camera guy entered our hall closet as I was walking up the sidewalk and recorded Nikki getting down on her knees and waiting for me to open the door. They managed to apprehend her. It was divided into tiny bursts, and I concluded there had to be another camera operator in our bedroom. My body was never really on display throughout at all. They spoke as though I were very small, even though I just have 8 inches worth. Not only that, but I had no idea. They performed well. Excellent. Nikki had also behaved well. I had taken a shower following our bonding in the bedroom, and the camera crew had left. I got out and Nikki was waiting for me. Dan and Julie were seated next to me, and I was really astounded to be sitting there. Dan had a hand on my shoulder and Julie was holding my hand. At last, I gave in and started crying. It seemed unbelievable to me that Nikki could be so nasty as to paint me in the role of a cuckold and wimp. Her husband, how could she have done that to me? It was almost too much for me to handle. After a while, Dan broke the stillness. Well, there are 3 more films featuring you. Things worsen. I know you well enough to know that the portrayal of you as a wimp is untrue. My lawyer, with whom I also spoke, informed me that this site will face severe consequences as a result of this. We think you were completely unaware of what was happening. In addition, he gave us the advice to remove our work off the site, which we did yesterday. It was 4 days ago that we learned about the movies. However, they have been online for a while. I became enraged, really irrational. Dan and Julie began talking to me to help me relax when they realized I was losing it, or almost lost it. What's done is done, Dave. It's time for you to think. Consider, even though you may want to harm them in the same way that they harm you, you must harm them where it will benefit you the most. Now consider, apply the system and get them right. Strike them with a folded hand. While you're at it, give them everything you've got. You will soon be seeing your soon-to-be ex-wife at the attorney's as well. You can use this movie to get her into so much trouble that she'll be lucky not to go to jail for it all. It is illegal as hell what they did when they filmed you in that manner. You have no idea that they are taking advantage of you to make money. All right, acquire revenge by lawfully striking them. Yes, our attorney practices entertainment law. He is quite knowledgeable about agreements, permits, and copyrights in the music and film industries. He informed us that we had a solid case against Nikki as well as the film's producers and website. I was altered that night. It profoundly altered me. I had grown over my fear of living without Nikki. Now, as I ought to have been all along, I was furious. I was prepared to fight now. A fight that, if I had my way, would result in Nikki and her companions being put in jail. A fight that might also make me extremely wealthy. It was a great success that Nikki and the lawyers met. I barely had time to see Dan and Julie's attorney, who agreed to represent me as well because he was somewhat familiar with the case. He attended the meeting at the lawyers with me, and I had video and pictures ready as well. Initially, the meeting's goal was to persuade Dave to stop talking about his ridiculous divorce and reconcile. I finally got to speak after listening to Nikki tell me how much she loved me and how devoted she would be to me for the next 5 minutes or so. Well, Nikki, I feel like I'm kind of in the wrong here. You claim to love me and want to stick with me going forward, yet there is some evidence that contradicts your claims. Evidence that might even land you in prison. What? Dave, what topic are you referring to? Other than cheating on you, I have done nothing wrong. No, Nikki, you seem to forget that you were also a filmmaker. Motion pictures that have made their way online. Movies in which you and I both appear. Films that disparage my persona. Films produced without my consent or awareness. On my land, in my house, even in my sleeping quarters. All created without my knowledge or consent. While I was speaking, I arranged the pictures. The movie clips were also set up and launched by my lawyers. Nikki turned as pale as the dead. It was, to put it mildly, shocking. Her attorney was trying to halt everything by talking as quickly as possible and demanding documentation of our evidence. I merely shook my head, staring into Nikki's eyes. To think that I would have been open to discussing a reunion with you. You know, I was. Actually, I thought I could rely on you to tell the truth to me. Till a friend pointed me to a specific webpage on the internet. I could never trust you, as these pictures and all the videos demonstrate. At all. I have never seen a bigger liar than you in my entire life. Not only did you cheat on me, but you also made me look like a wimpy spouse by filming the entire affair. You gave me a foolish appearance. Perhaps I was because I didn't see you filming me the way you did. For one thing, maybe I should feel like a wimpy cuckold too. I had faith in you at the moment. As much as I loved and cherished you, you were my wife. At the time, I believed I could put my life in your hands. I finally understand the reality. You have never shown me love. Love isn't in that mix, but I'm not sure what you felt for me. We're done now. Woman, take your lawyer and pray that he can keep you out of danger. I pivoted and exited the chamber. After several hours in there with her attorney, Nikki ultimately gave up everything. The kids, the cars, and the house were all mine. Even the money I had left in the accounts was returned to me in part. I gave her the $15.08 that were on the table. Eventually, she understood. It hit her when she was examining the money. 115 months. I watched her utter the phrase 15 years. My attorneys filed lawsuits against every one of her partners on the grounds of alienation of affection, against the filmmakers for secretly filming me, against the website for profiting from the illicit productions, and ultimately, the majority of the case was given to the local bomb squad, who had a field day with it. The business that produced and distributed the films, as well as the website that hosted them, were sued by me. In the end, I received almost 7 figures in compensation for my suffering, humiliation, character assassination, and everything else. It eliminated both of the participating companies. Nikki avoided going to jail, even though it was very nearly so. In the end, she was required to serve probation, and this was noted on her record. Now that several years have passed, I've moved on. It's also good not to have to live with the cloud over my head anymore. While attending the trials of people who had mistreated me so severely, I met a lovely and extremely gorgeous lady. Reporter she was, covering the story. We went on a date that turned into something more. After 3 months of marriage, we are content as can be. My new wife is unable to comprehend why Nikki acted in the ways that she did or why she let me go in the manner that she did. My new wife has told me multiple times that she thinks I'm the opportunity of a lifetime. My new wife is aware of one thing. I'm not a wimp at all. I'm undoubtedly attractive as well. Naturally, I am aware that my wife is also rather attractive. She is capable of cooking as well as loving and making love. She adores the children as well. In addition, the children adore her. Neither of them spends much time with their mother these days. The judge's distaste for her influence being close to them contributed to part of it. It appears that certain courts are still using standards. When everything was revealed, her parents were shocked. When they discovered that Nikki had deliberately used me in the way that she had, they effectively disowned her. They no longer interact with her in any significant way, but they do have a lot to do with me and their grandchildren. They also adore my wife Sue. Nikki, throughout the trial, she lost weight, a substantial weight. It was then found that she had acquired AIDS. What else is there to say about that? Nikki's group activities had previously led to the kids and I being tested for HIV. We conducted tests like clockwork for almost a year and a half. Every time, our tests came back negative. However, I had been concerned about that for a very long time. The person who had first recorded her and then me was found guilty of multiple offenses, and he is currently serving his sentence. In the slammer, 10 to 20. By the way, he was joined in that by a few friends. One of the people in front of the camera was the man's wife, who turned state evidence against him after learning that she would also be facing prison time. She received probation instead of punishment. I suppose everything turned out well in the end. It still amazes me that Nikki tricked me for so long. I believe she did love me once, but everything ended when she fell prey to those men's influence. She, too, will pay the ultimate cost. However, I wouldn't have and I didn't want that for her. Life may be a cruel mistress at times. For a few, anyhow. My feedback. Guys, I know this is hard to believe, but these kinds of things happen to some ladies. Someone experienced it. God knows who she entangled herself with in the local scene, and she was already cheating. She stopped caring enough to keep it hidden when I found out.